So a universal law is something that describes a natural principle of how life works, how the world works. For example, gravity, you could say, is a universal law on the planet. You could say that the second law of thermodynamics is a universal law. So in a similar way, I'm proposing that the law of effectual displacement is also universal. So what is this law saying? Well, it says that every living organism is potentiated to its higher efficacy and even highest efficacy through a source outside of itself, inside the ecosystem it arises in. That is in the first place where every living organism is potentiated. And therefore it says that the purpose and the higher meaning of anything that we can look at is not in itself, but rather inside the system or the context that it serves, which in return potentiates it, provides it with energy, provides it with meaning, provides it with ecosystem in which it can thrive. Simply stated, what I'm proposing is that the higher aspect of your potential is in what you serve. So let me give you an example. In fact, let me give you several examples. The two of you, you're building a relationship, and you are discovering that there is something you are looking for that the other holds, and that enables you to feel complete. And that is one expression, one example of the law of effectual displacement. The fact that you need each other. A simple relationship of two people where we need each other is an expression of the law of effectual displacement. On your own, you do not feel complete. So you seek the other person. And okay, so somebody will say, sure, you're talking about intimacy, you're talking about love, you're talking about the joy of being together. Yes, I'm talking about all those things and more, because there is something bigger that is more than whatever you'd be able to analyze in a reductionist point of view to the individual parts. And I'm saying, therefore, that the law of effectual displacement is the foundation of all healthy, robust relationships. And sometimes, and often, is also at the foundation of not so healthy relationships, but we'll talk about that some other time. So that's example one. Here is a second example, an expression of this, which probably will make it even more concrete, coming back to the human body. So the purpose of the heart, what is the purpose of the heart? The purpose of the heart is not to serve itself. It is there to serve the entirety of the body and to make sure that each and every cell, each and every part of the body is in the receipt of the refuel of fresh supply of blood that will bring the kind of nutriment and oxygen and all that we need, the everything in the system. So when a system works well, the parts, they serve the whole, and the whole then in return serves the parts. Same principle with the nervous system. Same principle with every other aspect of how the body works. Now in a minute, we'll see how it relates, because remember, I'm trying to build us a bridge, a segue, to discover how and why we're looking at a system that seems to be breaking down and not working. So before we can actually appreciate why a system is breaking down, as in the case of the global system, we're trying to lay the foundation, the groundwork to what are trying to put the mental infrastructure to enable us to think in terms of what are the foundational principles of how systems work well. So the third example, obviously, will be simply to look at an organization. And I'd propose that in that case, a good leader is meant to serve the people. And the people working in the organization, whether it's a for-profit company or whether it's a voluntary organization, the people are there to serve, well, to serve the organization, but more so to serve the organizational mission. That's what they signed up for. And the organizational mission will often, or if it is framed correctly, relates to the people that the organization is there to serve, whether it's, again, a company that provides service, or whether it's an educational system, or whether it's anything. So the leader is there to serve the people, so that together with the people, they can all serve the customers, the clients, the people that provide meaning and mission for that organization. So that's the law of effectual displacement. In other words, if everything in this universe was 100% independently sufficient unto itself, so the flowers would not need the bees and the bees would not need the flowers, we would be looking at a sterile universe. What I'm describing, what I'm calling the law of effectual displacement, is the mechanism, the anatomy of reciprocal cross-fertilization dynamics that you can see in every living system. This is what we call the law of effectual displacement. It's both poetic and logical. So, okay, so now we're getting into the interesting territory when we look at the fourth example. Are you ready for the fourth example? Because now I'm going to...
I'm not sure I understood even though you gave 3 examples.
No,
4 examples.
No, now.
Are you going to give the 4th example now?
I'm going to give the 4th example about business.
But okay, so maybe you finish and then I'll get the point. Because I have also another question about it.
Sure. So in business, when business works well, the purpose of the business is to serve its customers. If you remove the customers, if you remove the clients, you remove the reason for the business. Many people say, no, if the business works well, it generates profits. Correct. It generates profits, but the profit is the byproduct of a successful business. It's not the purpose of the business. The profit is what lubricates and what enables the business and what fuels and energizes the business. But when the profit becomes the self-consuming purpose of the business, it tends to divorce itself from its initial core premise, core purpose, which was to serve its client, to serve its customer. What gave birth to the business was a customer need. That's what we learned from Peter Drucker. And as we know, when leadership became obsessed with just the profit and short-term profit, sooner or later we will meet a crisis point and that enterprise, that company will no longer be profitable. So a good leader remembers that he or she, they're there to serve the employees so that together they can serve the clients and the customers. And it's the same principle that you see in nature, because the sunlight enables organic life here on Earth. And if you took the sun away, you'd see no life here on this planet. So what I'm proposing is that, and oh, by the way, poetically, the sun knows that it is a sun because it is surrounded by planets. Same like parents remember that they are parents because they get up in the morning and they see the toddlers or the children that surround them and they remember they have a responsibility as parents. That is, if they were able to sleep through the night. So every small and large system you will look at, you'll see that it's the ecosystem and the source or the need outside of the thing itself, the entity itself, you as a person, you as a company, that provides meaning and purpose. As in the case of an artist who wakes up in the morning, she wanders into the studio and she sees the unfinished painting, and it provides her meaning and purpose. The author, he gets up in the morning and the character that he was developing in the last few days makes the next move, so he needs to sit and write the next move. So in all of those cases, the need, the driving, the potentiating need is outside of the person or outside of the system or in the broader ecosystem that you as an individual or you as a family or you as a company operate in, the broader, larger society. What I'm describing is economy 101, is poetry 101, and is the source of all romance and all innovation. Because remember, and you are involved with an innovative company and an endeavor, innovation occurs when we recognize an unmet, unaddressed need, including a future need that we couldn't imagine yet, and somebody is able to develop a novel solution to address and meet that need. So in all these cases, the work and what it produces provides the meaning and the purpose and the energy. That is how the economy is meant to work, and the financial system is meant to lubricate and provide liquidity for the whole thing to work efficiently and resiliently. So I'm going to make a pause here because I'm about to make a transition to explain what's broken in the system. But let's make sure that this first step, the law of effectual displacement and how everything works in nature and when the economy works well, that is understood.
I think the last few examples were more clear to me. I'm just trying to understand if this is what let's take me. So I'm defined by the things I'm serving or relating to, or that's what gives me purpose? What is exactly the meaning of?
Well, you answer your own question. It depends how you choose to look at it. You are free to define the purpose you want to serve. For you to realize the purpose you want to serve, you sooner or later be surrounded with a system in which that purpose can be realized and expressed. This is what's behind the idea that personal development as an endeavor begins with you and ends with everybody else. Because if you will tomorrow be the most enlightened person in the world, and you bring new insights and teachings that we all need to internalize and appreciate, then it will become useless if you are hidden in a cave and nobody get to know about you. So I'm not proposing, you're trying to grasp it in your brain, and I'm trying to encourage you to assimilate it in your process and in your mind rather than brain it. Rather than put it in a box of what defines what. In the process of reciprocal cross-fertilization, it actually happens like a double helix that goes up like that. So in every phase, in every cycle, one side offers a feedback loop that defines the other side. Now the other side begins to develop a new sense of purpose and meaning, and out of that new sense of purpose and meaning, it is able to bring online a whole new level of service and solution. And what that does is it potentially re-architects the environment. Now that the environment emerged to a higher level of expression and possibility, then it provides a next possible elevation to the actors playing in that theater. So you're talking about something that is reciprocal, and the illusion of the super billionaires of the world that they actually created, the prosperity that they fully enjoy out of is incomplete. I am not joining the socialist left bashing of billionaires, because those are brilliant people that made a unique contribution. Often, not all of them. But also the other end of the continuum is so misguided and is so crazy to think that you have those wealthy individuals that they actually were able to purely create that extraordinary value on their own. No, they were able to create this value because of the system, the ecosystem that they were able to operate in, especially over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And they're actually part of the problem now that I'll get to explain in a minute. So, and they can also be part of the solution. They can surely be part of the solution. So, the last thing we said, are we okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're saying is that the financial system, when the economy works well, the financial system is designed to enable the economy, to provide liquidity and to lubricate the economy so that people that address needs are able to operate on a global scale and operate in an efficient way and operate with resilience. So what has happened? Well, what has happened is that over the last several decades, you could probably trace it to at least 40 or 50 years, early 70s, late 70s, what happened was that increasingly the financial sector, again, by the law of effectual displacement, was designed to serve the economy, reversed the flow. That got accentuated through the 90s, and then as we headed into the early 2000s. What happened was that the system got reversed, and the financial sophistication and the instrumentation that was developed in financial instruments that were developed in Wall Street and such, they reversed the flow. And instead of the financial system serving and banks serving the economy started serving the financial system, became subservient to the financial system. And
is the same thing about government?
Let's keep government out of that for a minute, to just stay with one thing. It's probably, the answer is yes, but let's just take it one at a time.
Yeah.
Let's just take it one at a time. So the 2008 financial crisis occurred because the system was already locked in that distorted imbalance. But the way they ultimately addressed the issue was that they made the problem bigger rather than smaller. So instead of the crisis addressing the distortion, the policies that were enacted made it, there were those entities that were too big to fail at the time. Well, guess what? They became a lot bigger. So what we are saying from this point of view is that when human systems work right, when human economic systems work right, they mimic, they emulate the natural principles, they emulate the economy of nature. But when they are captured by extractive forces, by extractive and cancerous forces, which means instead of serving the ecosystem in which they arose in the first place, they serve themselves, the risk is, by the way, for those entities that they then become like vampires. Every vampire knows that its risk is that it in the end becomes its own food. Because in the end, when it eats everything else, there is nothing else to eat, so it begins to eat itself. So that's what happened. And That is what will happen when a system defies the law of effectual displacement. Because again, the law of effectual displacement, what it proposes and what it shows is that actually you serve yourself best, we serve ourselves best by serving the ecosystem that provides us sustenance. You have a successful company because you provide truly needed service. And as long as you provide true, effective, powerful service, one that addresses customers' needs in a way that's more effective than anybody else, you have a right to exist and thrive and make a lot of money. Nothing wrong with that. That's delicious. That's fantastic. The problem is, what happens is that when the system distorts and becomes too defensive to protect its own power, then the people in power or the entities that are at the top of the hierarchy, they twist and turn and distort the system then gets locked in kind of a stagnating, arresting power, which we call a stop situation. When a system enters a stop situation, it blocks novelty, it blocks creativity, it blocks emergent innovation, it blocks renewal and resilience. So the result is the crisis that we are experiencing now. We are now looking at a global system that got locked, both the financial system and the government structure that you alluded to, because the people and the systems, the national and the global systems, are actually designed to protect or serve the people in power instead of those people mostly there to serve the reason of why this system was created in the first place. That's why I suggested on our last call that if we embrace this correctly, the crisis can potentially become a birthing experience, a new generational birthing experience. What we are likely to see now are two polar opposite forces. One side of the polarity will drive to embrace these ideas and recognition, but what you actually see the systems in power to right now do is actually move even more to the authoritarian side of the equation. You have governments following their people, where in the past you'd need to spend 2 or 3 years in open committees to debate the reasons for that and how to do that safely. Those are now laws and regulations that are enacted overnight, changing the nature of the relationship between a country and its people. So what I'm proposing is that there is a possibility for a profound change, but it's not the kind of change that will happen automatically, because the nature of us humans is we resist change. We only ever take the pain, the grief, the struggle, when we cannot escape it anymore. Because
because many rich and powerful people are invested in this model.
That's exactly right.
They have a lot to lose.
They have a lot to lose. They have the most power, and you hope they realize that ultimately we all lose everything, including them, even if they have bunkers to hide for these end of worlds scenario that we hope we never come to. Whereas what you actually need, both individually and in systems, we need to learn to embrace some of those birth pangs, because it's like there is no birth without pain. What we hope is that this is not an unbearable pain, but rather a pain that we can bear. The moment the devastation is significant. What we do know about the coronavirus, it's not the Black Death it's not the Spanish flu. So that is not going to look like any of those scenarios. But it's more the economic and the panic pandemics that we spoke about, those process 2 and process 3, where if we are to become resilient, then part of the process is actually learning to take the pain, learning to embrace pain and even run towards the pain. And that's easier said than done. Because think about it, what actually is behind the idea of running towards the pain? You're actually rerouting or reprogramming your instinct. You're actually saying, hold on a minute, this is a horrible pain, but I'm going to take it now, because if I delay the pain even more, the pain will be even more catastrophic and more devastating. So let me take the pain of today. I prefer the pain of today than the pain of next month or next year or the next decade. That is the kind of courage we need in leadership.